What if the love of your life could send you a message from beyond the grave? Stay with me till the end of this unbelievable tale. Imagine losing the person you love most, but then, just when you think you're at your lowest, a miracle happens. A pure white dove, a sign from beyond. Is it a message from your loved one, or just a coincidence? This story will challenge everything you believe about love, loss, and the afterlife. Stay tuned. You won't believe what happens next. Before we journey further into this unforgettable story, make sure you're subscribed to Epic Story Moments. Hit that bell icon now so you never miss an incredible tale. Join our community by liking, sharing, and commenting to keep these heartwarming stories coming. And hey, tell us where you're watching from. We love connecting with you all. In the stillness of a quiet cemetery, a little girl stood solemnly over her father's coffin, her small frame trembling as she reached down for one last hug. As she whispered her final goodbye, a shocking event unfolded that caused the entire crowd to gasp in disbelief. What did this grieving child do, and what happened next that left everyone stunned? Keep watching, because this story will take a twist you won't see coming. The early morning sun barely kissed the horizon over the bustling city of Accra when Kwame Asani arrived at the construction site, his hands worn from years of labor and his back aching with every movement. Despite the exhaustion that weighed him down, his determination burned brighter than ever. Born into poverty, Kwame had spent his life fighting to break the generational chains that had bound his family for years. His parents, too, had dreamed of a better life. But fate had been unkind to them, taking them when Kwame was still a child. Left to fend for himself, Kwame had worked multiple jobs, construction by day and factory shifts by night, just to survive. But it wasn't just the grueling jobs that gave him joy. It was a small street food stall where he sold whack, fragrant rice and beans, that filled his heart with pride. It was here, amid the bustling city streets, that he first laid eyes on her. Zara Mina. Her deep brown eyes sparkled as she walked through the crowd, her presence as graceful as a breeze. Kwame couldn't help but notice the light she brought with her, a stark contrast to the heaviness of his everyday struggles. Zara's visits became a regular fixture. Every day at the same time, she'd appear at his stall, her footsteps light and purposeful. Kwame, eager for her arrival, always set aside a portion of his best whack, knowing she would come. At first, their exchanges were brief, merely polite smiles and greetings. But as the days stretched into weeks, their conversations grew deeper. Zara was full of warmth, laughter, and kindness, an unexpected ray of sunshine in Kwame's otherwise hard life. One rainy afternoon, as storm clouds rolled in and the skies opened up, Kwame's heart raced when he saw Zara walking toward his stall. He had just sold his last serving, and the rain was threatening to ruin his equipment. Panicked, he rushed to pack up, but to his surprise, Zara rushed to help him. They laughed as they worked, drenched to the bone but united in their effort. Seeking shelter under an old bus stop, Kwame finally found the courage to confess his feelings. "Zara," he said, his voice trembling, "I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I can't stop thinking about you." Her eyes widened in surprise before a soft smile spread across her face. "What took you so long to say it?" she replied. "I've been waiting." In that moment, Kwame realized how much his life had changed since Zara entered it. What had started as shy exchanges over servings of whack had grown into something deeper, something beautiful. Every morning, long before the sun could bathe Accra in its golden light, Kwame would awaken to find Zara already busy in their small kitchen, preparing dough and spices. The scent of freshly cooked whack filled their modest home, a comforting reminder that better days were on the horizon. Zara, with her natural flair for business, suggested new recipes and experimented with flavors. More than that, she charmed customers with her infectious smile and engaging conversations. Before long, customers didn't just come for Kwame's famous whack. They came to see Zara, whose warmth and radiance made the tiny corner feel like home. Word of mouth spread throughout the vibrant neighborhoods of Accra. "If you want the best whack in town, You need to visit Kwame and Zara's stall. As their business grew, so did their dreams. With the increased traffic came greater profits, and soon Zara was encouraging Kwame to save part of their earnings. "We could open our own shop," she said, her eyes gleaming with hope. At first, Kwame had laughed it off, but as their savings grew, so did their vision. One particularly busy afternoon, after serving a long line of office workers, Kwame's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hesitant at first, Kwame answered, only to hear the voice of Mr. Mina, a representative from a large telecommunications company in Accra. "I've heard about your famous WAC," Mr. Mina said enthusiastically. "We're hosting a conference next week, and we'd love for you to cater the event." Kwame was speechless. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to cater for a major corporation. But it was Zara, always the optimist, who accepted the challenge without hesitation. "We can do this, Kwame," she said, squeezing his hand. "This is our chance." The week that followed was a whirlwind of preparation. They worked tirelessly, testing recipes, buying ingredients in bulk, and practicing their presentation. By the time the day of the conference arrived, they were exhausted, but their determination kept them going. When the attendees tasted Kwame's WAC, the room filled with delighted murmurs and satisfied smiles. The catering was a resounding success, opening doors they had never imagined. Orders began pouring in from all corners of Accra, and soon their small street stall transformed into a cozy shop in one of the city's busiest markets. They painted it a cheerful shade of yellow, symbolizing the bright future they envisioned. With their business flourishing, Kwame and Zara found time to focus on their relationship. They would take long walks along the beach, hand in hand, the sound of the waves crashing softly in the background. On Sundays, they'd take a break from work, exploring the vibrant streets of Accra, indulging in fried plantains and chilled coconut water. Within a year of their first meeting, they decided to take the next step. On one of their evening walks along the beach, under a sky full of stars, Kwame got down on one knee and asked Zara to marry him. "You're my miracle," he whispered as she gazed at him with tears in her eyes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. For months later, they were married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family. Zara wore a simple yet elegant white dress, and Kwame couldn't stop smiling as he watched her walk down the aisle. As they exchanged vows, life felt perfect. They had a thriving business, a cozy home, and most importantly, they had each other. But behind their laughter and dreams, there lingered a quiet longing, one that neither of them voiced but both felt deeply. As the months turned into years, Kwame and Zara dreamed of filling their home with the laughter of children. They tried everything: visits to doctors, herbal remedies, and countless prayers. Every time Zara saw children playing on the street, her heart would ache. She would smile and wave, but inside, there was a pang of sadness. Kwame, always the optimist, would hold her close at night, promising that everything would be okay. But little did they know, the true miracle they had been waiting for was closer than they could have imagined. In a quiet, serene cemetery, a young girl stood, gazing down at her father's coffin. The air was thick with grief as she bent forward. Placing her tiny hands gently on the cold surface of the casket, her face streaked with tears. With a whisper, she said her final goodbye, holding on tightly to the memory of the man who had been her entire world. But just as she did, something utterly shocking happened. A moment that caused everyone in the crowd to gasp in disbelief. What could possibly have transpired in that fleeting moment? What was it that left everyone utterly stunned? Stay tuned to discover the truth behind the unimaginable turn of events in this extraordinary story. But first, let us know where you're listening from, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales. The day had barely begun in the bustling city of Accra when Kwame Asani arrived at the construction site. His weathered hands and sore back told the story of a man who had spent years toiling in the most demanding jobs, yet his resolve remained unshaken. Born into a life of hardship and poverty, Kwame's dreams of a better future had always felt just out of reach. His parents had shared those same dreams, but fate had been cruel, taking them from him too soon when he was still just a boy. Left to navigate the world alone, Kwame did everything he could to survive. By day, he worked construction. By night, he took on factory shifts. But what brought him the most joy, even amidst his exhaustion, was cooking and selling waki, a fragrant dish of rice and beans, from a small corner stall. It was during one of these long days, with the sun beating down on him, that he saw her for the first time. Zara Mina, her deep brown eyes sparkled as she passed by, and Kwame couldn't help but notice her presence. It was graceful and calm amidst the chaos. Every day, Zara began to appear around the same time, her footsteps light as she made her way to Kwame's humble stall. Every day, Kwame kept a portion of waki aside for her, anticipating her arrival with a silent eagerness. Their initial exchanges were brief. A few smiles, some polite greetings. But over the weeks, their connection grew stronger. Zara's kind heart and infectious laughter illuminated the harshness of Kwame's life. One fateful afternoon, as dark storm clouds gathered above, Zara appeared as usual, walking toward his stall. Unfortunately, Kwame had just sold the last portion of waki for the day. As the rain began to pour down in torrents, Kwame scrambled to pack up his stall, but to his surprise, Zara rushed to his side, eager to help. In the chaos of the rain, they laughed together, drenched but determined to secure everything before it was ruined. When they finally found shelter under an old bus stop, Kwame's heart raced, and with a tremble in his voice, he confessed, "Zara, I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I can't stop thinking about you." Zara's eyes widened, and with a smile that warmed the cold, rain-soaked air, she responded, "What took you so long to say it?" "I've been waiting." That was the moment Kwame realized how much his life had changed since Zara walked into it. What had started as shy conversations over waki had blossomed into a deep, unspoken bond. Each morning, before the sun could even rise over Accra, Kwame would wake to find Zara in their small kitchen, already kneading dough and preparing spices. The aroma of freshly cooked waki would fill their home, filling it with the promise of better days. Zara, ever the business-minded dreamer, began suggesting new recipes, experimenting with flavors and charming customers with her radiant smile. Slowly but surely, the small food stall began to thrive, not just because of Kwame's delicious cooking, but because of Zara's warmth and presence. Customers no longer came just for the food. They came to experience the joy and energy Zara brought to the stall. Word spread quickly throughout Accra. If you wanted the best waki, you had to visit Kwame in Zara's corner. Business boomed, and soon, the couple had saved enough money to open a proper shop. One day, as they finished serving a long line of hungry office workers, Kwame's phone rang with an unexpected call. It was Mr. Mina, a representative from a major telecommunications company. "I've heard about your famous waki," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "We're hosting a conference next week, and we'd love for you to cater the event." Kwame was speechless. It was a dream come true. But Zara, ever the optimist, didn't hesitate to accept. "We can do this, Kwame," she said, her eyes sparkling with hope. "This is our chance." In the week leading up to the event, the couple worked tirelessly, preparing in bulk and testing recipes. The conference day arrived, and while exhaustion weighed heavily on them, they were determined. As the guests tasted their waki, the room filled with delighted murmurs, and the catering was a resounding success. The event opened doors they could never have imagined. Soon, orders began pouring in from all over the city. With the new success came a move from the small corner stall to a cozy shop in one of Accra's busiest markets. They painted the shop in a bright, cheerful yellow, symbolizing the bright future they were building together. Business continued to thrive, and in the evenings, they would walk hand in hand along the beach, the sound of the waves crashing in the background. On Sundays, they took breaks from work to explore the vibrant streets of Accra, treating themselves to fried plantains and chilled coconut water. 1 year after they had met, Kwame proposed during one of their beach walks. "Will you marry me?" he asked, under a sky full of stars. Zara's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Their small wedding ceremony followed, with only their closest friends and family present. As Zara walked down the aisle, Kwame whispered, "You're my miracle." Years passed, and with the love and warmth they had built together, their business continued to flourish. But in the quiet moments, something was missing. Zara longed for children, but despite their efforts, they had not been able to conceive. As time passed, they silently carried this longing in their hearts. Then, 2 years after their wedding, Zara discovered she was pregnant. Kwame's tears of joy were unstoppable. 9 months later, their daughter, Amma, was born. She had Zara's gentle eyes and Kwame's strong brows, and she was no ordinary child. By the age of 3, Amma was reading books and solving math problems, leaving her parents in awe of her intelligence and curiosity. But just when they thought their lives were perfect, tragedy struck. On Amma's 5th birthday, the joyous celebration quickly turned to horror. As Kwame leaned back in his chair, ready to share another laugh, his body suddenly went limp and he collapsed to the ground. Zara screamed in terror as she rushed to his side. Kwame regained consciousness briefly, but the fear was undeniable. Something was terribly wrong. As the days passed, Kwame's health deteriorated rapidly. Eventually, he was diagnosed with a rare, terminal illness. Kwame and Zara decided to keep the diagnosis a secret from Amma, telling her that her father was just tired. But Amma, despite her young age, sensed a change. One day, as she sat by her father's bedside, she whispered, "Papa, are you going to leave us?" Kwame, his heart breaking, nodded slowly. "Yes, my darling, I will always be with you. Right here," he said, placing her hand over his heart. Amma didn't cry. Instead, she kissed his cheek and promised, "I'll keep you in my heart forever, Papa." As the days passed, Amma became her father's little guardian angel, sitting by his side, reading to him, and comforting him in every way possible. Zara, on the other hand, struggled to hide her pain, putting on a brave face for her daughter. But in the stillness of the night, when only Kwame and Amma were awake, there was peace. The night before his passing, Kwame and Amma held hands one last time. The next morning, Kwame passed away peacefully in his sleep, leaving behind a legacy of love, hope, and resilience that would forever shape the hearts of those who knew him. The funeral procession was somber, the overcast sky hanging low as heavy clouds loomed over the small cemetery in Accra. The air was thick with grief, filled with the murmur of sobs and whispered condolences. Zara stood at the edge of the grave, her face etched with tears, her heart feeling like it had been torn from her chest. Friends and family gathered around, but Zara barely noticed them. All she could see was a simple wooden coffin that held her beloved Kwame. Amma, her daughter, stood quietly beside her, an unspoken strength in her presence. At only 5 years old, Amma's small hand clutched a folded piece of paper tightly, her final letter to her father. The pastor spoke the closing words, signaling that it was time to lower Kwame into the ground. As the heavy moments stretched on, Amma tugged at Zara's sleeve. "Mama, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Let me say goodbye." Zara hesitated. The thought of allowing her daughter to see her father for the last time was almost unbearable. But Amma's face was full of determination. Her heart shattered as she nodded, her voice breaking. "Go ahead, my love." In a quiet and tender moment, Amma climbed onto the small wooden step placed by the coffin. She leaned forward, her tiny arms wrapping around her father's still body. "I love you, Papa," she whispered, her breath warm against his cold cheek. "I will keep you in my heart forever." She placed the letter inside the coffin and kissed him one last time on the forehead. Tears streamed down her face, but her expression remained calm almost serene. As she began to step back, a sudden rush of wind swept through the cemetery, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. The air seemed to still, and in that moment, a flutter of wings filled the sky. A pure white dove descended from the heavens, its feathers glowing softly against the gray clouds. It glided gracefully, circling above the crowd before landing gently on Kwame's chest. The cemetery fell into stunned silence. It was as if time itself had paused. The dove tilted its head, its dark eyes fixed on Alma. It took a few delicate steps forward and pecked her cheek softly, almost like a kiss. For a brief moment, the sorrow in the air seemed to lift, replaced by something unspoken, a sense of peace, of love. Zara watched in disbelief, her tears forgotten. Around them, murmurs filled the air. Some made the sign of the cross, others wiped their eyes. To many, the dove was a miraculous sign from the beyond. Yet Alma, with the innocence and wisdom of a child, simply smiled. "Papa sent him," she said softly, her eyes turned skyward. "He wants us to know he's happy and at peace." Zara's heart clenched. A fresh wave of tears blurred her vision. But this time, they weren't just tears of sorrow. As she looked at her daughter's serene face, a flicker of hope ignited in her chest. Perhaps, just perhaps, Kwame truly was watching over them. The years passed, and life carried Zara and Alma forward. Though the memory of Kwame never faded, Alma grew up to be a wise and strong woman. His resilience and kindness lived on in her. She pursued her dreams, built a life, and eventually had children of her own. On quiet evenings, Alma would gather her children and grandchildren in her cozy living room. The sound of their laughter filled the air, just as it had in her childhood home many years ago. Every so often, they would ask her to tell them the story of their great-grandfather and the miraculous dove. Sitting by the flickering firelight, Alma would smile softly, her eyes distant with memory. "Your great-grandfather was the most loving man," she would begin. "When I was your age, he became very sick. But he never stopped loving us, even after he left this world. He found a way to tell me he would always be with us." The children listened, eyes wide with wonder, as she described the moment when the dove appeared at his funeral. "That dove was Papa's way of telling me that love never dies," Alma would say, her voice thick with emotion. "Even when someone we love is no longer here, they remain with us in our hearts." One of her grandchildren would inevitably ask, "Do you really think the dove was sent by him, Grandma?" Alma would smile and look at their eager faces, a soft, knowing gleam in her eyes. "Yes," she would whisper, "because love is the strongest magic of all." And in those moments, a white dove would often appear, perched quietly on the window sill outside, as if listening to the story. Alma would smile, a silent message shared between the past and the present, a bond too powerful to break. As Alma finished telling her grandchildren the story, they would ask, "Do you think it was really him, Grandma?" Alma would smile, her eyes glistening. "Yes," she would whisper, "love like that never dies. It simply finds new ways to show itself." As they hugged her, the dove perched outside, singing softly, as if to say, "I'm still here." And so, Alma carried the memory of that miraculous moment with her for the rest of her life. She believed the dove was her father's final message of love. But what do you think really happened that day? Was it a sign from beyond, or just a coincidence? If you were in Alma's place, would you believe it was a message from your father? How would it change the way you see the world? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe in signs, or is it simply a child's imagination at play? Thank you for listening, and until next time, hold your loved ones close. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt moments. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.